Hey guys, welcome back. So I've been getting increasingly more and more requests to do them versus now videos, which is great because you guys seem to really like them and I actually really enjoy making them because it's essentially a growth updates video, which is honestly like one of my favorites to film. I try to do them as often as I can, except in this one I actually pull footage from the past. So as far back as I can find footage of me showing this plant, and you actually can see it side by side with what it looks like now. By the way, these are all anthurium, and I feel like as more and more people are getting into the anthurium side of the hobby, it's something to look forward to because so many people are buying things as seeds or seedlings and it can feel like an eternity to get them to size up. But once you have a lot, it almost feels like in the blink of an eye, like they're flowering, and it's just very satisfying to look back, especially when you're documenting what they look like when they were tiny little babies. So the first two I'm going to show are from a video that I posted just over a year ago. It was a bunch of plants that I gotten from the States. So I'd ordered a bunch of plants from Palm Street and they came up to me and they were not babies, but they're actually not that big now either. For a year's growth, it's not that impressive. I'll tell you a bit more of the challenges I've had with them, but yeah, I'm excited to show you the first one. What should we start with? Let's start with this one. So this one came from a little selection of plants that I had ordered from Pau and Josh, and Pau's always so accommodating. She'd let me pick like specific plants that I wanted, and there's one that I wanted from this cross, and it was the Ace of Spades by Eastern Dressleri. She would give me her suggestions of what she think would be like the darkest, and she picked this one for me and I agreed that this one would be a really great one to get because I was only going to get one, so I wanted to make it count. And it was really dark. It was really round. I remember it had a baby leaf that was so dark. You know, like for a sprout, they're usually not quite so dark at that size, but this one was really exceptionally dark. And I remember that one little leaf that looked like a really dark, almost blackish bean really sold me on the plant. So this one grew well for me for a while, but then I really neglected to upsize the pot in time. It took me, I was so overdue for a repot and I had let it dry out because it was in too small of a pot for its root mass. And so it was putting out leaves that weren't looking very good. They were ripping. Maybe I wasn't fertilizing it on time, but when it was putting out a leaf, maybe I was letting it dry out and the leaves were like not forming properly. And so not that long ago, 2 months ago or something like that, I like hacked off a lot of leaves in this tent, and this is one of the ones I hacked back. I'm just going to show you part of the plant right now. So this was the leaf that was on the plant when I hacked it back, and then I potted it up to a 4-inch pot. So it was in a little, it's the size of, this plant is dripping, but it was in this size pot before, and I upsized it to the 4-inch pot and I put it into tree fern and pond. But you can see why I love this plant because look how incredibly dark it is. And I remember the Eastern dress that was used, I'm gonna put a photo right here, was incredibly dark, incredibly round. So, okay, first of all, let me show you its newest leaf. Look how stunning that leaf is. It formed so perfectly. It's such a nice upsize from the previous one, and it's so delicious and dark. It's absolutely flawless. So the emergent leaves are always this very chocolatey brown, like it's almost like a drinkable chocolate color. It's so nice. So I was absolutely thrilled to see that emergent leaf looking so flawless and just like really well formed. Like I don't know if it can get any better than this. It does have the little red sinus. I don't know if you can see from the Ace of Spades, I assume. And yeah, upsizing the pot and putting it into the substrate was absolutely the best thing I could have done. It's rooted in here. There's a little rotted root that escaped out the bottom. Must have been sitting in water, but that's totally fine. And it's now on cataphyls. I'm just like so thrilled with the color on this leaf, the upsize, just the sheen and the shape that it is turning into with the slightly overlapping lobes. And this one is only just hardening off now, so it's going to get a little bit darker than this. It's going to end up more like this color. I don't know if it's showing up any different. I think it is. This one's a little bit blacker, so as it hardens off, it will get a little bit blacker. I don't even think that my Ace of Spades dark form is this dark. Like no, it's not this dark. And it's never been this dark. And this one doesn't live too far away from lights. It's near to the top of my tent and there's a brain of bar kind of like a foot diagonally in front of it. So it's not like in a dark corner of my tent and it's able to maintain a really nice color. But yeah, if you have this cross as well, I would love to know if yours has been doing well. Mine has definitely been a challenge not because of the plant, but because like I just wasn't on top of things. But now that I'm on top of things, I'm reaping the rewards, and I love this plant so much. It's like a current favorite of mine. And in that same video, I hauled a Carla 1x16 from Rory, which is sold by Lauderdale Aroid House, Justin. So I had missed the initial release of the 1x16. So by the time I requested a plant, they were down to 2 plants. And Rory typically sells plants like largest to smallest, so like strongest to maybe not the strongest. And I assume he calls out like the absolute weakest ones. And I really wanted this one because at the time I was looking for a very thin vein Carla, and 16, I think 16 is the one that with really, really skinny veins. So I was just gonna like take my chances with it. And it came to me in Rory's kind of like Pawnee mix. It's like a soilless mix. It had a lot of charcoal. It looked like orchiata and a ton of zeolite in it. So I mixed it in with like some of my tree fern soil. So it was like half half, and it really struggled to grow. I think it grew a leaf every like 2 to 3 months. And that's really quite slow for a plant that size. Like seedlings tend to put out leaves really, really quickly. And that growth rate kind of starts to taper down the bigger it gets, because I assume like it's a lot more energy to make a leaf this size versus like this size. So anyway, I eventually got it out of that original mix of like 50-50, his mix and my mix, and I got it into tree fern pond, and it immediately started to grow faster, and this is what it looks like now. I am so pleased with this last upsize. And do you see how thick the veins are? It's absolutely the opposite of what I was originally looking for, but I love it so much. Because if you look how close, look how almost like fuzzy and faded and blurry the edges of those silver veins are. It's very different from my other Carlas. It almost looks like smudged. So just to show you the upsize from the leaf before, here's that. There's this. It really, really needs a repot now. Like, look at all those roots at the bottom. It is definitely on my list of things to do. I'll probably do it later today after I finish filming. I'm just gonna pop it into a 4-inch pot like this, and off she goes. I'm contemplating also going a little bit bigger, like maybe a 5 or 6-inch pot, and just totally boat mode it. I'll see how I feel in the moment. But this one hasn't been the strongest plant. You'll see like even when it was doing a lot better, we were getting little crispy edges and stuff. I don't believe I ever let this completely dry out. And then this new leaf has a little bit of damage down at the bottom. Not really sure what that's about, but I'm just happy that it finally started to size up, and I could not be happier about those veins. Like, it doesn't look like any of my other Carla veins. It's like most of my other Carlas have a little bit more of a defined vein, and this one is just so smudgy. The previous 2 leaves had more of like a bright silver kind of bold sinus here. I'll show you on this leaf. Do you see, like, it's like kind of, I thought it would be a thin vein one from this one with a really, really, really bold sinus, but it didn't really do that on this one. It's just like kind of like bold everywhere. But also at the same time, I've literally never met a Carla I didn't like. I like them all. Some of them are a little bit more exciting than others, but if you're gonna buy a Carla seed, like a Carla by Carla, that kind of thing, I don't think you can go wrong. Actually, if it was me, I probably wouldn't buy a seed. And I'm nothing against people who sell seeds, but I personally just don't like buying seeds. I'd rather buy probably like a 2-leaf sprout at the smallest. This is because I want to see what the first leaf look like and what the second leaf looks like, and then kind of compare the size jump between the two. I want to at least get a baseline on like, is this plant actively growing up, or is it just like 2 tiny little like rice grain things. Anyway, that is totally off topic. The next video, let's see my list. This video was shortly after IS, so it was posted about 7 months ago. Some of these plants are also from Pow and Josh. They decided to send us some of their own hybrids. It was kind of a surprise, and we didn't know what we were getting, and they came as sprouts, so that's amazing to show you the actual transformation of sprout to what they are now. So I still don't really know how they did this, but there was 3 hybrids made with Carla Pap as their mom. And I don't know if they had multiple mother plants, but how did they get 3 hybrids that are roughly about the same age and size off of one mother plant? I have no idea, but it happened, and I have the offspring. So the first one is Carla Pap by Carla Dress. So there's not a ton to see from this video. It is just bigger than a sprout. It's just only starting to show its characteristics. And here's what it looks like now. Little quick backstory. So I had it in one of those little like small 3-inch pots inside of a dome. So it's like a tray with a dome on top, grow lights on top, and that's where I grow a lot of seedlings until they're big enough to go into like about this size pot. So I transferred it out of the little pot into this pot into tree fern pond because again I'm still out of my soil component to use in tree fern soil. So a lot of my repots lately have been tree fern pond, like no soil. And then I put it into my tent and the older leaves just crisped, which surprised me because my tent is still fairly humid, but I guess not 100% humidity like the dome, but it quickly recovered. So here's the leaf after that. It's so, so dark. And then the leaf that it just put out, I am absolutely in love with that burst of bright white in the sinus. I think I was pretty late in sizing up the pot, so I'm looking forward to what it's going to do after this, after it's had some time to establish inside of a bigger pot. Pal and Josh, I believe, still have plants from this batch for sale, and under their care, the plants are bigger. So I would highly recommend if you like this cross, because it's like 50% Carla, 25% pap, 25% dress. It's going to be really dark, but they all get a bit of that Carla venation. Like it's a little bit slightly blushy pink right here, and I absolutely love it. It's mostly dark, and I think this one's gonna be a showstopper when it gets bigger. So this next one is Carla Pap by Port Dorito, and again, it's just bigger than a sprout. So not a lot of characteristics when I first showed it to you. I actually don't think I showed it to you ever since then. I'm pretty sure. I think I was like deliberately waiting for a video like this, but here's what it looks like now. So the same thing happened with this one where I graduated out of the dome and then a lot of the older leaves crisped. But it has recovered. It's put out a leaf inside my tent, but it's a lot bumpier than the leaf before. This one was fairly flat, but a lot more texture came out on this leaf. I think everyone who got seedlings from this batch were hoping to get a flat sinus, like take on the Port Dorito shape. So far, no, definitely has a distinct V-shaped sinus, but I guess you never know. It can still happen. The veins are also very minimal on this. I still really would love a Port Dorito. There are very, very few plants I'm actively trying to collect now that my collection is this size. I'm more so trying to get rid of plants than get more plants and be very ultra selective of what I get in. And usually with every plant that comes in, I like for at least one plant to leave so I can maintain this equilibrium. But Port Dorito is one that I would definitely want to obtain. It's this ebb and flow of characteristics I like in anthurium. I always like velvet and I always like dark, but sometimes I like really a lot of veins, a lot of thick veins, a lot of sparkles, and then sometimes I'll go into a phase where I really want muted, really dark, just stuff like this. Stuff like this makes me really happy right now. But that's not to say I don't like veins. I still really love my silver veins, but I'm kind of flowing back into the dark and veinless territory. So in that same haul, I also got some plants from the Homebody. I had met Fabi and Ryan at IS and I bought a plant from them and they wanted to send me some plants. I think they were trying to give it to me there, but it didn't end up working out. So they ended up sending it to Charmaine to bring up. Anyways, there was one plant in there that was their hybrid, and it's Portier by Carla. So when it came to me, it was just bigger than a sprout. It didn't really have any characteristics yet. I think some venation was starting to show up, but it was just basically a seedling and has recently started to really size up, and here's what it looks like now. This is a similar story to the other two I just showed you, where this plant was in the dome and it came out and I got into a bigger pot, into a tree fern pond. This one was really struggling inside the dome. I think I did let it dry out, but also I think it was too much light for it because leaves were coming out and then just like burning. So I think this leaf was the one as it was coming out of the dome, and then this one was the one that was fully grown inside of my tent. And I love the shape on this. I was really surprised with how veiny it is. I don't know which Portier they used, but for this cross, I really expected less veiny. I was expecting a lot more muted. I was expecting something more like that in terms of how vivid the veins are, but this, it does have a very, do you see how horizontal these two are? So the venation pattern is very like, almost like a cylinder. Does that make sense? It's kind of like that here too. And I do wonder if when it gets more mature, if that sinus will kind of widen. I don't think it's going to get flat, but I wonder if it's going to widen a bit more like Portier. But this one lives on the same shelf as the Ace Eastern Dress, and they seem to really love it up there. It's rooted out a ton inside the tree fern pond. I'm really excited for this one. I think it has the potential to transform quite a bit once it hits caterpillar and like the few leaves beyond that. I think this is gonna be a really, really pretty one because right now it's showing elongated shape and like a very distinct V-shaped sinus, but the lobes are slightly pointy. Like, do you see that? So I would really love if that got a little bit more exaggerated. That's my hope, but we shall see in time. Okay, so the next two are more mature plants. So this one was a propagation I had taken of my King of Spades, and this was taken in last summer. So I had chopped my King of Spades for the last time for the foreseeable future, and I chopped a really ugly leaf off of it. It was like kind of wonky, and I think it had pest damage on it. I'm pretty sure it had like flat mite or spider mite damage on it, and it was just like really, really not so nice looking. I had originally chopped it for a trade, but that trade didn't end up working out, so I still have the plant. I never sold it. I love it too much. So my track record cutting this particular plant has not been great. Whenever I cut a piece of stem without a leaf attached to it, that stem dies. The only times I've ever had a successful propagation of it is when it had a leaf attached. So that one, I tried to make sure it had a leaf attached, and it was quite a dicey cut. I had to cut it on like a diagonal because the King of Spades nodes are so close together. So I had to make sure I included that leaf, and then I cut it like, it was like a wedge. But luckily that thing started to spread a growth point very, very quickly after. And that first leaf was absolutely massive. I'll put a photo here of what that first leaf looked like. I was really shocked. I was expecting something smaller, but it was like this big. And here's what it looks like now. Look at that leaf. It's like a pancake. It's so cute. This plant now lives inside of my Mills bow and seems to really like it in there. I've got it potted in. This is still the same substrate I had when I originally potted it up after I had cut it, and it's got quite a lot of roots. I might repot it somewhat soon. I'm not really in too much of a hurry, but can we talk about how round that leaf is? So I think the first leaf it had grown off that stem cutting was this one. It's got a little bit crispy. And then it got thrips. I think I had this plant in a little exo, and that exo somehow had thrips in it. I don't know how it got thrips in it. I guess sometimes you just don't know, but there is some thrips damage on the old leaf here. And obviously I treated it and the thrips went away, and then I moved it into one of these exos, and it took so long after that for the next leaf to come out. So when I put it into the Mills bow, it was already like preparing to push a new leaf out of the caterpillar. So I don't think this is a Mills bow thing. But anyway, I love how round and pillowy this leaf has been. It's so much pillowier than the previous leaves. Like this one was pretty flat, and this is just like a round ball. And hopefully you can see down the midrib, the silver venation is really bleeding out, like almost like blisters. Putting this plant in my Mills bow was one of the best decisions I've made this year. I've had that cabinet as a Hoya cabinet for the longest time, and the Hoyas just, they were growing out of control, vinding everywhere. It was stressing me out. So I kind of reduced the amount of Hoyas I had, and I was trying to fill them up with orchids, but orchids, like, they're not that exciting unless they're flowering. So having orchids in there really didn't do much in terms of like rejuvenating my excitement for the cabinet. So recently I put in more aroids, and this was one of them because the King of Spades has such short petioles and such a compact growth pattern that I don't think it would outgrow that space really quickly. But this really did do the trick in terms of reigniting my excitement for visiting and watering and taking care of my Mills bow. The cabinet's also in my line of sight. Like when I sit and watch the TV, it's just over to the side, and I'm constantly just staring at this leaf. It's been great. I really love it in there. I'm still like not ruling out selling this propagation. So I have like this and obviously the mother plant that I got cut from. So I'm not ruling it out, but I'm honestly quite attached to it at this point, and I really, really love it. Oh, the colors, the veins, the roundness. And this King of Spades and also the mother plant grows so slowly for me. It's like leaves a year. So every time it puts out a leaf, it's a cause for celebration. By the way, I totally forgot to apologize for my background. There's crap everywhere. Okay, it's not actually crap, it's plants. It's plants that we just restocked on the website. You're seeing this in the future, so the restock's already like long past, but they haven't been shipped out and I need to bring it to Jing soon. So there's like a ton of bins behind me. And the last plant is a wish list plant that I had hauled about 5 months ago. So this was for my first plant haul of 2025, and I got a Mr. Worldwide from Matt, who is Caterpillar on Instagram. But when I first got the plant, it was really, really ripped up. There was an emergent leaf when it got to Charmaine in California, and she basically had like a car full of plants coming back, and they were just like really smushed together. I don't know if you guys know this, but we have a limit of 50 plants when you're crossing from US to Canada. If it's on your person, you have a limit of 50 plants to bring over without a permit. And then she had a lot of really big plants. She had plants for her mom. So anyway, in that car ride home, there's some mechanical damage that happened. So the plant was like really ripped up, but I was not at all worried because according to Matt, this specimen is a tank. So it grows really well for him. It's constantly growing and it's constantly putting out offsets. So for anyone who doesn't know, I'm going to take this plant as an example. So this plant has a caterpillar. This is apical growth point. An offset is when it activates a lower down growth point because every node has an axillary bud, which is like a secondary bud. So if you chop the top off, it will activate a growth point below. So some anthurium will be very prone to pupping, which is when they activate a lower down growth point and it's just like a separate plant that starts growing off the side while the apical growth point is still actively growing. Some plants don't really do that unless you cut it, but when you have a pup growing, it will be a leaf, and then from that leaf it's attached to a new stem growing out the side of the main Mary stem, and then that new stem will start to root and eventually have its own root system. But at the beginning it's going to be dependent on the main mother plant to act as its roots. So the Mr. Worldwide that belongs to Matt, because there's many specimens of Mr. Worldwide out there, he says that the plant would constantly put out offsets, and the size of that first leaf on the offset will be like this big, and as soon as that leaf stops growing, it'll flower from that new offset. So it's not even a baby, it comes out a fully formed adult. So I knew that the plant was going to recover no problem, and it has finally given me a beautiful leaf, and it just recently put out 2 flowers simultaneously. They actually didn't end up doing anything, like they didn't even like fully open. They just started to die, which is interesting. But this is the first flower I believe that this plant has ever given me, and the caterpillar is active. It's pushing a new leaf soon. So I had it growing in the exo at first, and I wasn't giving it a ton of light just because the exo was too full. And I recently upped the light, like I got rid of some plants, I moved things around, so it's getting a pretty good amount of light now. So this leaf was grown when it was in a darker condition. So it was like kind of farther away from lights. There was plants above it, and now it's kind of got unobstructed light from above. It's actually back to the size that it was when Matt had grown, or the original first leaf. But I'm very relieved that we're there, and I might cut this leaf off, honestly. Once a new leaf comes out, I might cut this one off. So the Mr. Worldwide is an Indoport by NSE Port, and the Indoport is a kind of glossy, no ID, possibly Portier hybrid or very Portier resembling plant, and then the NSE Port is velvety. So what you end up with is a kind of sub-velvety texture, but you get the really wide sinus, the pointy lobes, the triangular shape. I just love this plant so much. I was actually really excited for these flowers. I wasn't going to put pollen on it, but I wanted to take pollen for possibly something else. I think this would be really cool to cross with my Fort Sherman Rolflinum. Something else with a wide sinus with that bluish kind of tint, minimal veins. I think that would have been a cool hybrid, but alas, I did not get any pollen off this. But I'm pretty sure, yeah, it has not flowered off of this leaf yet, and then there's another leaf coming. I still have not repotted. This is exactly the way Matt sent it to me. So this is tree fern fiber with a lot of really chunky perlite in it. And it's not like super filled out the pot with roots. I think it still has a ways to go, so I'm not in a hurry to repot this. I think this can live in this pot for a good amount of time more, and I think maybe the next time I repot it is if it pups, which actually could be soon. I don't know. By the way, if you don't follow Matt on Instagram, he's another one of those like very talented growers that is super low-key about their collection, and he just takes really good care of his plants, and he does occasionally sell on Anthurium addicts, so look out for him. And that is the last plant. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Let me know if you enjoyed this format, because I deliberately didn't do a lot of comparisons that I could have done because I want to save some for future videos. I'm doing growth updates videos all the time, but I feel like maybe once a quarter doing it in this format might be fun. But anyway, thank you guys so much for watching. I hope your day has been lovely so far. I love you guys so much, and I'll see you in the next one. Mwah!